We're discussing the issue of change and transition, which is part of our Change Dynamics workshop. We have seen the importance of understanding transition as part of the change process. Now in this episode, I'll introduce the life cycle chart, which is a tool that will help us identify the change necessary in our organizations. In our leadership team coaching, episodes 1 to 12, we considered if it was inevitable that churches and organizations in general had to decline, or was it possible for them to continue to grow indefinitely? It is important to remember that we're making a difference between the people of God, the new wine, which will last forever, and the human structures of the local church or organization, the wineskins. While the gospel and the people of God are eternal, the wineskins are not and need to continually be changing. Without this change process, the vision of the church will eventually shrivel. The church will lose its purpose. Organizations are like an organism in the natural world. The life cycles of human organizations are similar to the biological realities of all living systems. Understanding these dynamics can help us recognize problems that arise during the life cycle of a church and then ways of coping with these challenges. The life cycle chart is a way of tracing the beginnings of an organization from inception to maturity and minimizing possible decline. Our life cycle diagram is adapted from Bullard's research. Bullard suggests that there are 4 organizing principles from the DNA of a life cycle of an organization that can be applied in the church. These are vision, relationships, programs, and management. Now, vision is the current understanding of God's strategic direction of the organization. Relationships refers to the processes by which people are converted, assimilated, grow spiritually, utilize gifts, and develop as leaders. Programs refers to those activities and ministries that serve the church. And management is the administration of the physical resources, but as well as the systems developed to make decisions and change values and cultures. It's important to remember the definitions of each of these as we discuss the diagram in detail. Now, if you've completed the Church Health and Evaluation Assessment, you'll notice that there are questions specifically related to each of these stages. As you can see from the diagram, in each stage there's a different emphasis and need. During each stage of development, this is represented by the capitalization of each letter, V, R, P, and M. Vision, relationship, program, and management. For example, during the birthing stage, vision is emphasized and most important. Then as the church develops healthy relationships, represented by the letter R, ministries are also established and grow. And as the church matures, effective programs that meet the needs of the body begin to function, shown by the letter P. And eventually, healthy administration is created so that the ministry can reproduce itself, signified by the letter M. Now, decline in the organization occurs if we focus on our past successes and fail to recast new vision. Lack of vision is always the first step to decline. And when vision starts to go, most people in the church or organization do not recognize decline at that point. Things are still humming along pretty good. We're living off all the successes of the past. But as the organization ages, contentment invariably leads to a loss of vision, and this eventually leads to a breakdown in relationships, which means outreach slows and members no longer are growing. Now, this is when people become discontent and notice that something is not quite right. If at this stage intentional steps are not taken, the organization will regress to the next stage of atrophy. Unchecked, the death of a church or organization is inevitable. Now, as I mentioned before, this does not mean the doors close. There can still be many programs and systems may still be in place from the church's glory days. However, what it means is there's a loss of vision and purpose. The typical stages of a life cycle have been described as birth or startup, growth, maturity, revitalization, decline, and death. Understanding the life cycle model also helps us to show how the problems and challenges of a church shift as the church develops and grows. However, it is important to point out that not all churches move through the life cycle sequentially and inevitably. Smaller organizations and smaller churches have a greater risk of dying than more established ones. And decline can happen at any stage due to the many varied reasons such as too much change too quickly, leadership issue, crisis, and so on. It is also important for organizations to remain at one stage instead of moving through the life cycle towards maturity. Some churches gradually develop, while others can swing back and forth on the cycle as they experiment with different strategies. Churches can even reverse decline by making necessary changes. They can engage in a renewal process. With intervention, the life cycle or the life stages are not inevitable. though it does illustrate what happens when leadership is not attentive to vision and the overall health of the church. In bringing about necessary change in a church or an organization, leadership needs to evaluate if the church can handle the long process of renewal. As we saw in our discussion about change, this is usually not an easy process. Renewal is most successful if there are no immediate threats for the church's survival or if it has not entered a period of decline. If either of these is the case, however, then more bold, direct actions by the leadership is typically required. Now, we'll need to count the cost on our team and on the church as a whole.
This series is based upon our MCNet coaching and ministry guides. There are basically two parts to the series, 12 episodes that cover the 5 sections of the coaching guide and 18 episodes that cover the 8 workshops of the ministry guide. As a team, we have had the opportunity to serve in various parts of the world over the last decades using these materials to equip leaders and coach ministry teams throughout our ministry coaching network. These ministry team workshops in episodes 13 to 30 are intended to equip members of the body as they serve on ministry teams. The importance of mentoring, team building, and multiplication strategies are discussed here, and these workshops coincide with the leadership team coaching in episodes 1 to 12, which cover big picture issues that affect the whole ministry. Each workshop has several episodes and can be listened to independently, though if you have the time, it would be helpful to listen to all of them, as they are connected and build upon each other. A couple of the workshops have only one introductory episode here, as the topic is covered in greater depth in another of Phil's podcast series, for which you will find links below. You can also check out our Christian Leadership Institute training program. This is a unique approach to ministerial training based on a competency-focused mentorship. The free materials for this series, as well as the coaching and ministry guides, are available from the links in the description box below. Just as many others have, we are sure you will find our other Leadership Matters podcast series helpful for you and your ministry.
Having an understanding of organizational life cycles can help church leaders maintain a future orientation. Understanding our church or ministry within the context of a life cycle can help us have more realistic expectations, those which are appropriate for the church's present state of growth. It can also provide a perspective that will enable us to think and plan strategically so that we can help the church progress towards maturity. This perspective will help us identify issues and needs that confront the church at its present state of development. It also provides the opportunity to assess and evaluate our leadership practices in light of the church's present state of development. And then finally, it can assist us discern the dynamics that cause getting stuck in the first place. And if already in decline, it can provide motivation for intervention. I'll just take a few minutes here to describe each of these stages, and for a more detailed explanation, you go back to episode 10 in this series. Now, birth, of course, is the exciting stage of organizational life. We are dreaming of all the possibilities. The way forward is to think and plan strategically regarding how people are relationally connected and are encouraged to grow as followers of Jesus. The ministry flowchart can facilitate this kind of planning. Then the next stage is early development, and dreams are coming true. A community is being established as relationships are facilitated and encouraged. There's a growing sense of purpose and destiny. And the way forward now is to recognize and encourage emerging leaders. And then this leads to maturity, where leaders are serving. There's an abundance of ministry ideas and a growing sense of organizational identity. This may be a time of significant growth and will require systems to be put in place to manage growing resources. The way forward now is to include effective administrative leadership. Now, at the adulthood stage, there's planning and effective administration leadership is allowing ministry to become more structured and efficient. There's a great sense of accomplishment, fulfillment, and purpose and optimism. And the way forward now is to avoid becoming complacent. Care has to be taken so that efficiency and contentment do not displace fresh vision. Now, there's contentment and a sense of love and well-being still once you're at the aging process. But because of the quality of relationships, and the church could still be growing, and there's still a good sense of health. However, fresh vision and new ideas are being seen as a threat to the status quo. And at this stage, it requires great honesty to be able to recognize that there may be a threat on the horizon. Now, in the stage of atrophy, a lot of energy is now being spent on just preserving the status quo. Growth has stopped, and because of the decline in quality of relationships, people are leaving. There's a growing discontentment and conflict, and we begin to romanticize about how good things used to be. Without intervention at this point, focused on moving the church into a new life cycle, the organization will move to the death stage. At this final death stage, all that is happening is the management of existing physical resources. Vision, purpose, and effectiveness have all disappeared. And the way forward at this point is probably a strategic burial and a fresh start. Now, death is not inevitable, but in order to avoid it, we have to take intentional steps to mitigate the negative impact that the aging process has on the organization. Where is your church or organization in the life cycle? What would other leaders in your church or organization say? Does your church have ministries that are at a different stage of development? And how does this influence the allocation of resources? And what are the next steps do you think forward for your church or organization? And what style of leadership will be needed to move the church forward to the next growth stage? And what leadership skill set is needed to move your church or organization to the next growth? And what will you do to help your church or organization avoid atrophy and death? So as I mentioned, churches and actually all organizations do not remain healthy left on their own. Left to themselves, they often become complacent, ingrown, and self-satisfied. This is what is meant by the hardening of the wineskin. It begins with the initial loss of vision or mission drift as the organization loses its purpose and reason to exist. What often happens is that there's mere existence becomes the purpose. See, as a church begins to go through the aging stages of the life cycle, it is possible to identify several stages of decline. Now, the first step of the decline is the blinded stage. Unfortunately, at this point, early warning signs are usually ignored or avoided. The programs and activities are still humming along pretty good. This stage, though, left unattended, inevitably leads to the inaction stage. Now, decline becomes more noticeable as there is increased internal problems. But usually at this stage, leaders are still hesitant to take action. There's still hope that things will just get better on their own. They never do. At the faulty action stage, the third one, it becomes clear that the church is in decline. Through objective measurements such as declining numbers, decline can no longer be avoided or rationalized away. At this time, we often take short-term, interim measures that deal only with the symptoms. Better music, pastoral change, tinkering with the visible stuff. This is because change is difficult, and so we try to avoid it. Yet if nothing is done, or if just outward cosmetic change is implemented, it will lead the church to the crisis stage. This is actually the last stage for renewal. At this stage, depending on the context of the church, there's either slow erosion or rapid loss, and the ongoing effectiveness of the ministry decreases substantially. And if nothing is done at this fourth point, dissolution is inevitable. At this stage, decline is irreversible. Depending on the context of the ministry, the church can flounder for years, keeping the lights on, or it can shut its doors quickly. But in either case, it ceases to fulfill the reason for its existence. Now, decline can be reversed at any stage except for the last one. By taking steps, leaders can create the right climate for renewal that can revitalize the ministry. But without action, death is the ultimate result in the life cycle. Now, depending on the situation, either bold steps need to be taken or a long-term plan of change may need to be embarked upon. This is why we have been discussing the importance and process of change. This can be tough work, but an essential leadership task if we're going to maintain healthy organizations that will be able to fulfill their purpose. Now, this workshop is part of our team coaching series created to assist those serving in the body of Christ. The goal is to help you and your team grow healthy, multiplying churches. Now, this workshop corresponds to the leadership team coaching in episodes 1 to 12. Now, the complete workshop, Change Dynamics, is covered here in episodes 22 and 23, and it's also available as a download. This workshop is part of the Coach's Playbook discussed in Section 3 of Leadership Team Coaching, which was in episodes 7 to 10. You can also follow the links to the free resources for this workshop, which include a leadership transition and organizational change assessments, as well as a relational health for organizations assessment. And don't forget to check out some of my other podcasts, such as the Fivefold Ministry podcast series, where I discuss this topic in greater depth. Well, hopefully our discussion over the last couple episodes has been helpful as we seek to maintain a healthy church with fresh vision that will cultivate ministry multiplication. We have been viewing the church through the lens of human organization, but the church is also mysterious and divine in nature. Its very beginning was based upon the foundation of Jesus Christ, and only He can sustain it. In our next episode, I'll provide an introductory overview of the importance of God's Word as a revelation of Jesus Christ and the necessary foundation for a healthy church.